you have done if in 2020 the pandemic caught you in a strange country and you didn't know where to go?
I'll be in the house, maybe doing some research videos.
What if your money got finished and you had no place to
Yes,
stay?
you stay in your house.
But you don't have a house there anymore
Ah,
because you have
correct.
no money. Yeah.
Then I don't know.
That's it.
What
Stop.
would you have done?
Cried. That's a good place to start. And most people, they experience that. And we're going to focus on the scenario in South Africa, where most people like that were taken to repatriation centers.
Wow.
Now, the problem was, how were they treated in those centers? Someone was intrigued by that story, and she decided to do an investigative documentary on it. She is our guest, and I'm going to try to pronounce her name again. She's a South African, Sihle Hlophe. She won Best Documentary at CAMIF 2020. Here is our conversation.
I want you to take me to the city that I love, where good life never ends.
In conversation with Sihle. Hope I got it right.
Sihle Hlophe.
Sihle Hlophe. All right. You're welcome to Cameroon.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm loving it so far.
So far, CAMIF 2021, what has been the experience for you?
It's been a really enlightening experience for me because I've never been to Cameroon before, and I came with no preconceived ideas. I was just a blank canvas, but it's been lovely to see the young people enjoying different films, going to master classes, and also just finding out a bit more about the broadcasting landscape in this country. Yeah.
We're going to get into the deep part of the event, but first let's get to know you better. You're from South Africa. Where precisely?
I'm from Nelspruit, which is about 3 hours from Johannesburg, but I've been based in Johannesburg for the last 12 years now. Yeah.
What can you tell us about Joburg, as they call it?
Sure, Joburg, I think it's a really fast-paced place. It's a place where people come to make their dreams come true. Of course, it's also, I feel like it has a bad rep. Especially in the media and things like that. It might not be the safest place, but it's also a very vibrant place. It's just about being cognizant of where you're going, and there's lots of stuff to do there, lots of amazing things to do, and the people are very friendly and very warm.
And I'm sure there are lots of stories to tell as well. When did you get the interest to become a filmmaker?
So since I was a little girl watching TV, I was just like, what is on the other side of that box, So it's been like a desire and a passion of mine since I was maybe 7 years old. Yeah.
And then professionally, how did you get involved?
Okay, so when I graduated from high school, I then went to film school at the University of the Witwatersrand. After that, for my honors year, I was an exchange student in Finland, Helsinki. And then just my career started from there. I registered a production company, got commissioned by the broadcaster, and then after that just proceeded to also work with other people. Mostly as a writer. I've written for a lot of the popular television shows in South Africa across the different broadcasting platforms, and then I started directing as well from the onset. So I've just been a writer-director, done short films that have gone to over 40 film festivals around the world, and I just recently wrapped my first feature fiction film. And I've been shooting my feature-length documentary for the last 5 years. So this year we are completing that as well.
We're going to get into the projects you're working on, but let's talk about the documentary that's been highlighted here in CAMIF. Tell us about it.
So the documentary that's been highlighted here at CAMIF is called Lindela Under Lockdown. Lindela Under Lockdown is about the largest facility for the holding of undocumented migrants in South Africa, a place called Lindela Repatriation Center. And we focus on a character called David. He's from the Democratic Republic of Congo, and he was detained inside Lindela, and he exposes the human rights violations that are taking place in there during the national lockdown, which is obviously as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Yeah, so that's what the film is about.
Why did you choose to tell that story?
I chose to tell that story because I was concerned about the well-being of migrants during the national lockdown, because people were not allowed to work. People were not allowed to go out on the streets, but also people were not allowed to leave the country. So essentially people were trapped inside South Africa. So if people were trapped inside the country and they were documented and it was bad for them, imagine how much worse it was for people who are undocumented inside the repatriation center. So, and also just seeing reports about people escaping and things happening at the repatriation center is what drew my interest.
You know, from outside, we can have a view of it being difficult, but getting the story from someone who lived inside, what did you gather that you presented in your documentary?
So what I did is immediately upon making contact with our protagonist who was inside was first to direct him. So to teach him this is how to shoot, this is how to avoid light, get sound, get yourself on camera. Immediately when you see something, send it to us immediately because your phone can get confiscated. So it was those conversations and also just assuring him that he would also be okay to whatever extent that we could protect him, you know, but just knowing that we're doing something brazenly, but we have no choice but to do it because there's no other way to expose these human rights injustices.
But then you used other methods to be able to scout what was happening inside. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we tried the authorities first and we weren't getting any response from them, so we decided to use a drone. So we flew over the center, but from our protagonist, we got cell phone footage, we got voice notes, we got photos, we got videos. So yeah, that's how we strung the story together.
Let's get into the details of what he gathered. What are some of the things that he found out?
Okay, well, let's talk about COVID. Okay, there's the general conditions, like sometimes lack of food, overcrowding, the facilities are unsanitary, you know, but now COVID. What he told us was that they were only given one mask, and that was only after the minister came to inquire. People that were quarantined after being detained were in the same place as the people that were not quarantined at some point. So there was a nurse who passed away while we were filming at the clinic. So it was just that concern, like if people are together in a confined space and this pandemic is going on and more people are being brought into the center and they're not being screened properly except for temperature, which isn't always a great indicator, then it means that it's a potential ticking time bomb, so to speak.
What I don't understand is why did the home countries of these people not receive them back into their countries?
Yeah, I mean, that is really the sad part about our African leaders. I feel they always let us down because when the authorities at Lindela Repatriation Center contact your embassy and your embassy doesn't care that you're at Lindela and doesn't care about how you're going to get repatriated or how they'll open the borders for you, then you find yourself in a double bind and you're open to even more abuse because now the authorities at Lindela know that nobody cares for your well-being.
And some of them, when sent back, did their countries receive them?
So it differs from country to country, but I'll give you a case of the Democratic of Republic of Congo where people were taken back when upon arriving at the airport, the Congolese authorities said they don't recognize or know these people and they must be taken back to South Africa. You know, so what does that mean for those people now going back to the same country where they were subjected to xenophobia and gross human rights violations?
What is your expectation from producing this documentary? What are you expecting from South Africa or from the Africa in general?
I won't lie to you. All I'm expecting at this point is just for people to be aware of what's happening because you find that even a lot of South Africans don't know about Lindela. They were like, there's a place like this. What? In our own backyards. So it's to create awareness, to create some kind of dialogue. We've already had a webinar about alternatives to being held in deportation centers because people that are in deportation centers are not criminals. They just happen to be undocumented. So why are we treating them like criminals? Why are we imprisoning them? You know, so it's just to start a conversation around alternatives and how we can do better as South Africa, but also the other countries that have to receive people or negotiate for the rights of their citizens who are in South Africa. You know, so that's my biggest hope, is just to create awareness. Change, I'm hopeful, I'm optimistic, but we'll see.
Sihle, you've been in Cameroon for almost a week now. I'm sure you've been able to interact with some film students. This was a challenging project because you had to hide to get through it. What kinds of conversations did you have with young filmmakers here in Cameroon?
Well, I think the ones who saw my film were just like taken aback because of the perceptions they had of South Africa and this whole notion of South Africa sort of being like a haven for a lot of other Africans, and then what's the reality on the ground if you're not documented, but also conversations around just filmmaking in general and the support, because in South Africa, on one hand, we do get support from the government or the national film bodies that are in place, but it's also inspiring to see people sourcing funding from elsewhere to make their projects, because that makes you less dependent and it makes you more innovative as a producer. So that's a good lesson for me to go and take back home.
Talking about going back home, what are you working on right now?
Right now, I am in post-production for a feature-length documentary. It's called Lobola, A Bride's True Price. So it's about bride price, and it's about the relevance of bride price in a modern context and the different steps and how bride price has always been important for us as Bantu people. From when we migrated from West Africa all the way until we got down to South Africa, and how we still hold that in reverence and respect it. Yeah.
What else? Is that all?
No, that's not all. I'm also directing a new mockumentary for our local broadcaster, SABC1. It's called African Dreams, and it's about a wedding planning company. So that's a 13-part series, which I'll be starting. We're already in pre-production, so we start shooting on the 31st of this month.
Okay. You're also working on a project on teenagers, right?
Oh, yes. So I just wrapped a feature film, which is for Showmax. Showmax is our local alternative to Netflix, right? Because we sort of have a push and pull with that. We also want to have our own localized SVOD platform. So the film is called Nhlakanipho, and it's just about a teenage girl who's navigating, peer pressure, and also just like her calling, which is to be an actress, amidst all the things that happen to teenagers nowadays.
What's interesting is you just don't direct or produce, you write the stories. How do you decide what it is you want to work on at a particular time?
It's for me, I have to know that it's something that I can be married to for a number of years, because that's usually how these projects work, right? They take a number of years. So I have to know that I'm okay with this inside. This is something I really enjoy. And if I'm happy with that, and it's something that's always been sort of irking me, or I felt like this needs to be addressed, then that's how I'll decide.
Because some people would like to get into screenwriting as well. What would you tell a film student on how to do it effectively?
Okay, so insofar as screenwriting is concerned, it's all about consistency. The more you do it, the better you get. But it's also about being really professional, You're being paid to imagine things, to hear voices in your head, and to play, essentially, right? But that doesn't mean that you're not in part of the machine, so to speak. So your deliverables are still important, the quality of your work and how you present yourself. At the end of the day, you'll find that people that are more conscientious will make it even more than people that are extremely talented. So you have to be as conscientious as you are talented, really.
Have you watched some Cameroonian movies since you got here?
Oh my God, yes. The issue for me is the name, but I have watched some Cameroonian films. I was struck by the cinematography, by the landscapes, especially of the countryside, and the different cultural beliefs, and also just the meeting of different cultures and how people are navigating certain things, like childhood marriage in a modern context and women's empowerment. Yeah, there's another film I saw about women's empowerment and how important education is, So I see those socially relevant themes coming through in a lot of the work, and I think it's very exciting.
When we look at the journey of filmmaking in South Africa, you're at a level where we do admire. What will it take to get there for a budding filmmaking country like ours?
I won't lie, it does need the support from the state. It does need support from the state, because what you find, like I'll give you myself an example. South Africa has over 100-year history of cinema, right? But South Africa also comes from a history of deep trauma, especially racially, right? So to see a black female African director is still rare, so I can literally count how many of us there are. So, but it's because of initiatives by the government, like training and development programs, and even programs like this where I'm allowed to come to a film festival and they fund that helps me to now stand on my own at some point, but also collaboration. I work a lot with my peers as well, so there's things that we've done like crowdfunding. My last short film, we did crowdfunding.
How is that done?
We use a platform called Thunder Fund, but there's also, I think the American one, I don't know, but we decided to use local one because that also, people have their own issues with sending money online, and it was just a new idea to them altogether. But that film alone went to over, I think, 35 festivals, and that's just collaboration with peers, hard work, putting people together, and just doing what you want to do.
Well, I'm sure you must have enjoyed our meals here. I can't let you go without you telling us what you enjoyed the most about what we eat here.
Yes, I think there's a dish called ndole.
Oh, there we go. My favorite.
Oh, okay, great. So I enjoyed that. I still want to try a bit more. I've heard about a dish that has peanuts and chicken that I've been told to try ever since I was in South Africa, but also I love the plantain and the fish, the seafood, really fresh. I don't know how to pronounce the names exactly, but it's good food.
I think you described it beautifully. Now, how do I say thank you? Siyabonga?
Yes, ngiyabonga. Yes,
Thank you
ngiyabonga.
again.
Thank you for having me.
Now we can get back to the studio. Cameron Feeling continues.
I want you to take me to the city that I love, where good life never ends. That I love,
Sihle Hlophe, thank you so much for sharing your experience in Lindela Under Lockdown. Hopefully, we will all get to watch it online. Check it out. It's a great, great documentary. That said, as I promised you while starting the program today, we have a special focus on National Day that just passed, but we remain in the spirit to talk about what makes us proud of being Cameroonian. And we're highlighting sports today. It keeps us together. It also celebrates our culture in the country and out of the country. Solomon Lewa met some key figures to tell us how sports is amazing for social cohesion.
There comes a time when Cameroon